Hey everyone, today I am creating some Christmas cards and also some sneaky birthday cards and for you cards. I am using the card sketches from Kendras Card Challenge number 11. My favourites are number 1, 2, 7 and 9. Now I only ended up using 3 out of these 4, but I also used up almost the entire remainder of my White Christmas paper pad from Kaisercraft. The orange and black cards that you can see here are from when I did the full challenge, and I will make sure I put a link below so that if you want to check that out, you can after this video is complete. One of the preparation steps that I took is I wrote down the sizes of paper that I need, so the pattern paper specifically that I need for each card sketch. This meant that when I sort through the leftovers of a paper pad, and you can see this one has been quite heavily used, there's lots of small pieces, it means that I can cut down the biggest pieces that I need for the design first. And once I do that, that'll help me understand how many cards that I can make. And then I can use all of those smaller pieces to complete the card designs. I find that Kaisercraft paper pads make so many cards. There is 36 sheets in them, which is unusual because most paper packs have 24 by standard, and then Paper Rose, for example, only has 18. The other thing is they have a bonus 4 sheets that have things like these little tags I'm cutting out, sentiments, and then you can see these little decorative borders. So it means that there is a lot of elements, so you can get the paper pack and then use it with sentiments and die cuts and all things ready to go that all match the paper pad perfectly. So I highly recommend Kaisercraft. They are an Australian company that I use quite regularly. I do find that I sometimes get myself overwhelmed as a bulk card maker though, because the paper packs are so big. They are only one-sided, so you don't get choice, but the paper designs are gorgeous, so I don't find myself wasting very much at all. The first sketch I'm going to focus on today is sketch number 1, and it just has this pattern paper on a base layer with some tags on top. Now, I took a pretty unusual step with this, and I didn't do this previously, where I did not put any string or twine or ribbon through the tags. Now, I think it looks okay, but I think it would look better if I had taken the time to put the ribbon through, just because I think it gives the tag a bit more purpose than just the open circles with nothing in them. But I'd be interested in what you think when you see the finished cards. So maybe put a comment below to let me know, is it a thumbs up for the cards without the string or twine, or a thumbs down, or you're fine either way. I'm running through here and I'm just creating loads of these on craft backing panels, and then I'm using this punch that I got from Stampin' Up. Now, I saw somebody use this in a video and immediately tried to track it down. It is retired and I bought this secondhand through eBay, but watching someone just punch and create tags this easily, I'm so glad that I bought it. I'm so glad. It makes it so quick to create tags. I do have die cut tags, but with those you can really only do one at a time. And with this, I'm using quite thin paper here. It's heavier than copy paper, but it's by no means cardstock. And what it means is I was able to do multiples at once, and then I'm able to trim down the tag to the size that I want. So as long as I've got the width, a size that will fit into that punch, these work out absolutely perfectly. I'm now using a stamp set from Tim Holtz and Simon Says Stamp. This is no longer available. It was part of the Simon Says Stamp Stamptember release in 2021. The ink pad that I'm using matches up with the paper pad perfectly, and it is one of the Versafine clear inks. It's called Warm Breeze. I'm now back to using my punch, and I'm just stamping through the pattern papers to create the second tag, which will stack behind on the card design. The completion of these cards is really straightforward. I'm literally attaching the backing tag and then the tag with the sentiment. I do try and do it so that they're both on an angle, so it's quite deliberate that they're put on the front of the design without looking too symmetrical. The next design is sketch number 7, and for this one you need to put a piece of paper on an angle and then line up these little 1/4 inch strips. I always end up with loads of 1/4 inch strips. I always have a pile at the side of my desk. So this one really appealed to me when I saw this card design, and I knew I was going to use it again. The way I've done this is I've gone through all the smaller pieces of paper and I've trimmed them down to 1/4, and then I've gone through and decided, look, there's probably a need to have a bit more of a contrast on the cards. I like the one that I did originally that had the silver and the dark and the medium orange. And with the paper that I had, I thought if I have this really dark midnight blue, that would be a really good contrast to work with the other strips. If you're enjoying the video, it'd be great if you could hit the like button. That is how YouTube decides to spread things to more viewers. I am hoping to get to 3,000 subscribers, so if you're interested in more content over Christmas, then please consider also hitting that subscribe button. Thank you. These cards were a little fiddly to make, but I tell you that I do get great satisfaction out of using every last piece of pattern paper. I hate wasting things, and even though we have excellent recycling here in Australia, and I do put all of my little bits and pieces of leftovers either in a stash to use for holiday programs where I donate leftovers, or into my paper recycling. I'm just trimming these down. This is super simple, literally lining up the backing panel with the trimmer. The next thing I did is I had a few of these pattern papers that had some elements themselves that were probably pretty enough to create a focal point for a card, so they were off to the side of a full sheet of 6x6, and based on how I had cut down the paper to use the other parts of the sheet, I had these gorgeous little reindeers and Christmas trees, so I simply just matted them in white and then found some extra leftovers in my stash where I have some blue with gold stars already matted on white. So I grabbed these, added them to some craft, and then literally just added 2 basic elements to a card and a sentiment. They look super, super cute, and I managed to use up some of my leftovers that have been hanging around in my stash for a while, and created some super, super cute Christmas cards. The next set of cards are made out of sketch number 2. This uses 1.5 inch squares, so it was absolutely perfect to use as one of my final designs. I am running through now and using my very unusual technique for adding double-sided tape to the back of small squares. I literally just attach it to my hand and chop it down into little small pieces so that I can rapidly put it on the back of the squares. I prefer this to using liquid glue because I find liquid glue is quite unforgiving, and it also means that if you've got thin paper, you can sometimes see the glue where it's attached to the paper itself. So with double-sided tape, I find that this is super quick and easy, and I can run through and just add the tape to the back of these, then peel off and add them to the white square that is going to host all of these little squares. Now, I stayed true to the original sketch, and by that I mean I used 2 sets of different pattern papers per card. So here I'm using one of the medium blues and then the dark blue. Because I have so many that are a similar tone, so you can see on there that each pile is a different pattern paper, but 4 of them are that sort of medium blue. So I've made sure that when I'm doing my contrast, I'm actually lining up the dark blue with the medium, and then I'm using that sort of browny, like tan, with the medium blue as well. And so in the end, I end up with a pile of different elements that all have nice contrast to them. I'm now working through and deciding what backing panel I'm going to use, and I think for most of them I did use that blue. On to the next step, and this is creating my Christmas element to go on some of the cards that need a little bit more interest. And I decided to dig out an older stamp set with some reindeer. The reason that I picked this stamp set is when you stamp the reindeer in one colour, he looks complete. And what that means is I don't have to get out my Copics and start colouring things in. I don't have to try and figure out watercolour or some other colouring medium. I can literally stamp these out and add them to the card quite quickly. And then they do kind of, have a similar theory to the little reindeer that are all throughout the paper pad. And these ones are going to look absolutely perfect. You can see at the top of my screen, I've already stamped a few of them. I then did decide that I was going to change my approach, and I've taped everything down so that the blanks that I have on the right, I can put those straight into the gaps from the die cut template, and I don't have to worry about anything moving around. Everything's taped down really securely, and then I just put the blanks in, stamp them with my ink pad, and I am good to go. Now, I am pretty sure that this ink pad is navy from Hero Arts, but I will make sure that I link it below. Everything that I've used today that is still available and is still being sold in stores, I'll link below, so it's nice and easy for you to find. But I will also put the items down below that are retired, just so that you don't wonder where they've come from and try and track them down separately. Okay, here I am adding my little reindeer to the almost completed cards. So this one is back to sketch number 7, and I've just added a little Merry Christmas at the bottom, and then I nearly said dinosaur, and then a reindeer. It's not a dinosaur, it's definitely a reindeer. These match really, really nicely. I use the navy because for most of these cards, you can see I've got some dark colors in the strips on the right-hand side, but these main panels that they're going to be balanced in front of are going to be quite light. So this just means they stand out a little bit. And the card, again, I always talk about balance. It's good to have the different colors that you're introducing on a card kind of spread out or purposeful in a little cluster. The next step was to create some additional sentiments, and I did this today using one of my all-time favourite stamp set collections, and there are 4 in the series. This one is the Magic Holiday Messages stamp set from Lawn Fawn, and I've used those combined with my Tim Holtz stacked Thinlits circle dies. This comes with 5 of each size. There's 25 dies in total, and I find that for bulk card makers, it's an absolute must. So I will put a link to those below. The next set of cards, I used up a whole bunch of just strips. So I ran them down the side of a backing panel, and then I had these other little 1/2-inch strips sitting on my desk that were the same color tones, which was a complete fluke. And so I ran through and used up a few of those where I thought that they would match. And then I thought, I actually think what looks really great when you do this type of technique is, again, contrast. You hear me talk about that a lot. So I've run through and used this midnight colour as a real highlight strip down the edge of the rest of these cards. I then finished them off by adding either one of the circle sentiments that I had just created or one of the reindeer. And the reindeer, he didn't look cool just floating. He's sitting there, he doesn't look like he really has a purpose. So I cut down some midnight cardstock and some white squares, and I gave him somewhere to sit. In order to make this work with a sentiment, I also just grabbed a small Merry Christmas and I just added that at the bottom of the white, and that meant that I could stack it onto the dark colour to give myself a bit of a contrasted layered border, and then I could add the cool reindeer on top. Now, some of the reindeer are flying through the sky, some are standing still, and I used a bit of a combination on all of the different cards that are left to mix things up a little bit. If you're wondering which of the original 4 card sketches I didn't use today, it was card sketch number 9. I will put a link here to the full Kendras Card Challenge number 11 video and another video that I think you might enjoy. Have a great day.